My name is Joe Weltz, and I'm Senior Project Manager here at DrayNow. A little bit about my background with DrayNow is that I've been here for a little over 3 years. So I started in March of 2017. The importance of that is that that was prior to our product launch. Our product did not launch until May of 2017. So I've seen everything under the sun with our product, where it was then when it was just an idea to where it is today. I've worn many hats. So I've been under the operations team, calling carriers, calling customers, making sure that they get their product delivered. I've even invoiced, and I've worked with our engineering team to deliver a valuable product. My current role is, like Evan said, knowing everything about our product, making it as useful for our customers and our carriers and our team here. So a quick introduction to Intermodal. We saw a lot of attendees on this list probably aren't familiar with Intermodal. So just a quick summary of what that is and what that means in the trucking industry. So when you think of a truck and when you think of product that has to move, you think of a move from Chicago to California where someone hops into a truck and just drives and then they deliver it to the warehouse. Well, the difference with Intermodal and specifically Intermodal domestic drayage, which is what we focus in, instead of getting in a truck and going right from Chicago to California, you get in a truck in the Chicago area, you get a carrier over there to deliver that to the rail yard in Chicago. It goes across the country on a train and then delivers at a rail yard in California. And then in California, a local truck driver delivers that to the warehouse. So there's a little bit more touch points on an order in Intermodal. So that's what makes it a little bit different and actually a little bit more complex than a typical trucking over the road move. So some things to note about Intermodal. Well, it's historically a very tech-starved industry. There's a lot of opportunity to develop and pave the way to the future. So our company, DrayNow, was built to bring technology to the forefront of the intermodal space. The key component for us is that our founders and leaders have actually been industry veterans for several years. They're not tech leaders, they're operations and industry leaders. So they know where the problems lie within intermodal. And from that, you can actually create technology to solve those problems. A lot of companies out there are coming to just bring technology in. We're bringing technology in to actually solve problems. So if you're familiar with our platform, you're one of our customers or carriers, you've seen and used all of our features firsthand. But do you really know what goes into them and what integrations we have, who we're connected with, and how we came about with these features? Well, using internal and external feedback, gathering data, testing our platform, our team works hard to identify these opportunities for improvement and innovation to develop the right solutions that provide the right answers for our industry. So, the first, identifying new product opportunities. Clearly, we're nowhere without the idea of a product or the idea of solutions that we can provide. So we need to get as much feedback from all of our different users as we can to provide the best platform that we can. And one thing you'll note as we talk about the different users that provide feedback is that we use one source of record keeping, and that's Zendesk. So we like to keep all of our feature requests, all of our bug requests in one centralized area because all of our users' voices should be heard, and they all have great ideas. So we want to never lose track of that. So we try to keep it in one centralized place. So Zendesk and feedback from our customers. We actually recently implemented the Zendesk chat feature on our web platform. So if you have an issue and you're on our web platform, you can quickly click the chat button. Someone from our operating team will be live standing there waiting for you to message them, and they can help solve your problem right away or provide you with feedback right away. This is really important too for gathering feedback on features and bugs, because I've been on platforms before where I have an issue, but I would have to go to my email or make a phone call to log it, and I didn't have the time and I moved on. So this allows users in real time to be able to submit that feedback instead of having to take their time out of their day to go somewhere else to submit the feedback. So some examples of feedback from our customers that we've received that have actually become features. Back in the day, creating an order, it wasn't the best. All you could do was create one order at a time, and you had a lot of information you had to submit at once. So our customers said, we really like your product. We really like getting orders on there. It's just kind of tough. What we've noticed is that a lot of these orders are actually repeat business and repetitive locations. So what we implemented was a duplicate feature. And this allows our customers, when they create the order for the first time, they enter in all that information. But when they want to create, 10, 15, 20 more of the same lane, they can click duplicate. All they have to do is update the unique fields per order, which is like a reference number, appointment time, and a warehouse number. But that's only 3 data fields versus the 15 we usually require. So they can duplicate and they can create 15, 20, 30 at a time, and it saves a lot of time to get these orders into our system. And we also created a lane feature. So a lot of our customers, just like I said, have repeat business, and they're also called lanes. So from this rail yard to Chicago, or in Chicago to this warehouse in Rockford, Illinois, we always have the same lane. We want to be able to quickly make orders, but we also want to save that in your system so that we can add special instructions. We can tell the driver what to do. And so every time we create this order, it'll give that same information over and over again. Plus, also, if you saw on the last slide, there's a little star symbol next to it. So now our customers can keep track of what their dedicated lanes are. This gives them a better idea, hey, if this is a hot load, if this is an important lane, I can actually track it more easily because it's more visual to me. So the other users that we collect information from is our own internal team here, whether that's our customer success team, our marketing team headed up by Evan, or our operations team. They can all submit feedback. And like I said before, they actually submit that through Zendesk. The great thing about Zendesk for our admins is when they submit a feature request or a bug request, they can actually use a pre-populated fields so that they can put in the right information that we need to turn that into a feature. So a lot of the time, it's really hard to get down exactly what you want in a feature. But if you select a feature request, we have an outline version of the information we need so we can fulfill your feedback and create a feature from it. So some examples of feedback from the team. We were really experiencing a lot of issues with brand new carriers and drivers always being late to their first appointment. So the issue that we found out was, well, in other forms of trucking, the first appointment is always the first location. And in intermodal, like I said before, you start at a rail yard and then you go to a warehouse. So if you look here on the app, it looks like the appointment time is for San Bernardino, California on that first example. But in reality, that's actually the rail yard, and that's not the appointment. The appointment time is for the warehouse. So what we did was we moved that appointment time to now be next to the warehouse location, so that when you're a driver and you visualize it, even if you're new, you can say, okay, this location, I have to be there at this time. And it really has increased our on-time percentage, especially for those new carriers. So then also, we get our feedback from our carriers. Our carriers are vitally important for moving this freight. A lot of the feedback that we get from our carriers is through the phone. Our operating team is always talking to them throughout the day. So a lot of that's on the phone, but then it can be logged in Zendesk. So a lot of these features are more related to UI, UX. Our demographic here is a little bit older, a little bit less tech savvy. So we have to make sure that it's as intuitive as possible to use our app. So there's a lot of tweaks that we have, but the one thing that we're proud of is that if you look at an order in our system, you can quickly identify the information that you need to make that decision. Do I want to take it or do I not? I can see where it's going, I can see the price, and I can see the time. And that's basically all the information I need to make my quick decision. If I want more information, I can go in there and find out more. But that quick information is what grabs me and what draws my attention. So another example of feedback that we got from our carriers, in our app, we actually have an embedded scanner. So as you're moving the freight, you have to take scans of paperwork, and you can actually take that within our app. The issue that we had was drivers could scan and view their scans, but they actually needed paperwork prior to going to some warehouses because they required printed out pieces of paper instead of on your phone visible paper and documents. So now drivers in our app, if there's a document uploaded, they can actually quickly click on it. They can either view it, they can print it if they're connected to a printer, they can email it to themselves or someone else to print it out for them. So we've given them that access to use those documents prior to even starting the trip. So that's about how we source our feedback. There's obviously a lot of different ways we can get feedback and ideas. We always encourage that. So that's where the ideas start, and that's how we get those ideas. But the really important piece is managing the product. How do you actually turn those ideas into a real life product and a real life feature? So before we get into that, quick introduction into kind of the historical software development lifecycle in Intermodal. For a lot of you folks on the webinar, you might not be familiar with product management or the different methodologies, so I may say something that can confuse you. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. But when you think of these software development projects, you think of, okay, well, it takes about 6 to 12 months to write everything up, all the features that you want, document it, and then it takes about a year to develop. And then it takes about 6 months to test. And depending on your testing, you go back and you work on it, make it better. And after 3 or 4 years, your system's finally released. What we've learned over time is that that's not viable anymore. You don't have 3 or 4 years to develop a system. In today's ever-changing world, being agile, being able to provide software as quickly as possible is what's really important. So in our intermodal industry, you'll see these big transportation management software providers, and that's what they do. They take a while, they'll build these huge products, it takes them a while, and they'll release them. And a lot of these providers have been around for 15, 20 years, so they're very complex, they're very big, and they're hard to make small changes to. So with that, it's right for us to come in and start creating a new technology that can assist those transportation management systems and provide quicker releases, better functionality than what people have seen in the industry today. So how we manage our projects is what's called Agile. So Agile came around in about 2001, the term was phrased, but the main importance of Agile product management is that it's continuous improvement, always breaking down things into smaller tasks, actionable features that you can release, and just keep working on iterating and making better over time. So you don't release one massive product that's perfect, because to be honest, there's no such thing as perfect. So you release and then you make it better. And then you release and make it better. And you keep working on making things better, especially as your business is changing, as the world around you is changing. You can adapt a lot quicker. So how we use Agile and kind of the methodology behind Agile. So we use 2-week sprints. And what a sprint is, it's basically just a time box period where you get a certain amount of work done. So what we do is we say over 2 weeks, we're going to get X number of things done. And then at the end of that 2 weeks, we're going to release, and those are going to be our new features. And then we're going to start another sprint for 2 weeks. And you keep it very focused to 2 weeks at a time. And the important thing to note about our company using Agile versus some others is that because of our operational background and our leaders and the technology that we're using, we're very problem focused. We use an operation Six Sigma, which comes from operations and lean methodologies. We use that to find actual root cause to problems in our industry, and then use our technology and Agile to create solutions. So the blending of those two ideologies is really what makes our product beneficial and far superior in the industry. So during our sprints, every 2 weeks we're working on something, we're releasing it. But there's a lot more that goes into a sprint than you might think. So at the beginning of every sprint, we start the planning process. We go through and we look at, all right, what tickets are going to take, or what features, what requests are going to take a certain amount of time. How long are they going to take? How hard are they to do? And from there, we kind of say, all right, these 10 things is what we're going to focus on. If we do 5 really big features that are going to take multiple weeks to release, then we won't be releasing anything for 6 weeks. So you have to make sure you manage that correctly and say, all right, if we're working on one big thing here, we should knock out some other small things here that can really improve our product. So there's a lot that goes into that sprint planning. And then during the sprint, we have our daily stand-ups. So every day, the engineering team, the product team, they get together and they say, hey, this is what we're working on as a whole. how's everyone doing? Are you blocked on anything? And sometimes it's, yes, I need, some thoughts from product or from the operations team because I'm working on a problem for them. I need their input, or I need some other engineer's input because I'm technically blocked. I don't know how to get around this code. So every day we do that to make sure everyone is moving forward and continuing to refine the product. And then at the end of the sprint, we do a demo. So we show what we're about to release to non-engineering and product teammates. The reason we do this is just to, for example, get marketing involved or customer success involved so they know what we're about to release and they can see how it works. And then after we do that demo, we actually do a retrospective where the engineering team gets together and we say, all right, what went well? What didn't go well? What can we improve on? How can we plan better? And we talk very openly. If I forget something, I expect someone to call me out on that. So we always want to get better as a team because we're providing so much value for people in this industry that we want to just keep getting better and keep working on it. So that's kind of how we manage our projects on a day-to-day basis. But before we release, although Agile is all about releasing quickly, iterating, not making something perfect, you still want to test and you still want to make sure that you're releasing something that either A, has value, or B, isn't broken and going to cause our users pain. So something to note is we have multiple different environments that we work on. And basically what an environment is somewhere that you can use our platform. So for example, we have local environments. So our engineering team can use the local environment for when they write code, they can test it and see how it works with our other features and if there's any issues. Once that works well and they're comfortable with it being on their local environment, they can move it to our staging environment. That's when our other engineers and some members of our product team can go ahead and test it and make sure that feature doesn't cause regressions and it's how the product team wanted it. Once you go from that staging environment, we go, depending on the size of the release, or if it's a big change to our UI or what our users are going to experience, we send it to a beta environment. And this we can call up certain customers, call up certain drivers, and give them a test environment, a real life production environment with these new testable features. So they can start to give us feedback. We can log how people are using it, see if it's worthwhile to release to all of production. So we have that beta environment for our web platform. And then on our mobile app, you can use what's called Google Play Store. They have an alpha testing where you can sign up users to give them the test version of the new features. And then also iOS has something similar called Test Flight. So we use all those different tools to make those decisions on what is the best quality that we can deliver. We can start seeing the data, how people are using those. Sometimes you have unintended consequences that you didn't think about. So we get to see all that and get that fleshed out before everything goes to our production environment, which is where all of our users can see exactly what's going on. So I'll take you outside of the presentation for a quick second, just to show you our staging environment. So this is our staging environment. We do have currently a beta test out there. So I'm not in the beta environment because I can't show our customers' information, etc. But I can show you our staging environment. And this is one new piece of functionality that we are testing and going to release shortly. But in our industry, there's typically a pickup and a delivery, and that's what we've had for the past 3 years, is you can enter a pickup or delivery on our website, our web platform. But now you can actually do multiple different types. So our customers came back and said, I love the functionality for pickups and deliveries, but I have this load that actually has to stop at 2 warehouses instead of 1. Can you get me a 2-stop delivery? So we've taken all that feedback and we've actually started to test exactly how that looks and started to implement that and have our customers using it. So if I select one of these new types, you'll see there's now stop 1, stop 2, when in reality, it used to only just be 1 stop in our system. So that's a little insight into our staging platform and what is out on our beta platform. So that's how we test things. So continuous development of features. So we've just gone through how we source our feedback, ideas, how we execute it, how we test it, and now how do we continuously develop. And I think we have a really good example here of something that we've really refined over time, and that is our location services. So one of the big advantages of our company is that we track mobile apps at the driver level. So our customers can see where their order is at any moment in time based off where that truck location is. Instead of having to call the driver and see where they are, you get that now on your app. Sounds pretty awesome, right? And we have it so that if a driver's on your order, you can see their location, you can see an ETA because we're integrated with Google Maps, and you can see where they're headed to. So you can actually see that information. That sounds perfect. That's exactly what you need, right? Wrong. So from there, we said that's awesome. That's a really good feature to have, but we want to get better. And with our app, drivers have to manually update and say, I've arrived at the rail, I've departed the rail, here's my container information. What was happening was that they were forgetting to do that information and enter that information in. So what we did was we started adding more features to our location services and created this concept of inferred progress, where we know what you're doing based off of the things going on around you. And so we implemented what's called geofence, where we truly draw fences around the rail yards. And when you enter and exit, we know that you've entered and exit, and we can update the app for you so our customers can see that you were there. It's a really awesome feature. It gives you really accurate data. And it sounds perfect, right? Again, wrong. There's no such thing as perfect. You can always get better. So then we realize, okay, well, the driver now updated, they've arrived and they've departed the rail yard. We know that. What did they leave with? We don't know what container number they left with. Can we validate that their container number that they put into the app is accurate? I know I have fat thumbs, and I know some people, you put a 2 instead of a 1. It happens. So we integrated with this company called RailLink, which is an aggregator of all the rail yards that will track and trace, or that'll confirm what container you actually left with. So now we have it that you can arrive at the rail yard and automatically update. We can verify exactly what container you left with, and then we can verify that you're on your way. So we can kind of update everything without the driver interacting, because they're worried about one thing, and that's getting your order delivered on time. So updating for them is not always a priority. So if we can do that for them, give that feedback to our customers, that is the huge win. And so that's what I mean by not accepting perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. You can always get better and refine. And here's just an example of our location services and what that looks like to our customers. You can see on the map the load, where it came from, where the driver is, where they're delivering to, and where they'll be returning to. What's not on this is right under the screen. You usually see an ETA, so you'll see exactly where the driver is, what time they'll be there, and if they get stuck in traffic, it'll actually update for you. So I hope you learned some things today. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Again, just to reiterate, from start to finish, we're really working hard at DrayNow to get feedback that jumpstarts the production of each feature as we continue to test and fine-tune everything whenever possible. On the horizon, we have multi-stop trips coming out, greater geofencing capabilities to shippers and consignees, and even actually a SaaS platform where customers will be able to use our technology for their own carriers. So those are just a few things that we're working on at the current moment, but that's all while continuously developing and refining our current product. So appreciate everyone for hopping on. Now we'll move over to some Q&A.
Great, thanks, Joe. So we have a few questions that when we have a couple more minutes left. So first one is, how do you prioritize working on features in a sprint? Does the team's direction ever change in the middle of a sprint?
That's a really good question. So when we talked about the agile methodology, the framework that we use within that is called Scrum. And what that is where you set up those 2-week sprints. And typically, and I don't want to say always, but typically you do not change in the middle of a sprint. Those features have been fleshed out. It gives the team a good guidance on what to work on. So you don't want to just drastically change that, because that'll slow production down. And typically everything that we get, unless it's a bug that's breaking our platform, it can wait another week or 2 until it's worked on. For prioritization, there's no simple way to put that. There's a lot of things that go into it, like I said, level of effort, what's in priority right now, what our customers want, what our carriers want. But what we do is we work with the operating team and say they're focused on time percentage, and they want to get that increased because our customers said that that'll drive more volume we'll work on prioritizing something to increase on-time percentage. And then we'll also use our other knowledge of level of effort and things like that to create the work for that 2-week sprint.
Great. And we actually have another question. How do you define success for products and employees with the mindset of continuous improvement?
That's a very good question. So defining success. Well, success for us is being able to release a feature that's tangible. And so not always are you releasing something that everyone loves because you're testing things. You're always continuing to improve. But what we say is, if we've learned something from this, so say we released a feature that's terrible, well, what we probably learned from it is that's not the direction to go. So as long as we're learning from what we're releasing and just continuing to get better, creating more output every sprint, because that's the goal, is to keep creating more and more output. As long as we're doing that, I would say we're successful.
Great. Thanks, Joe. And I think we have time for one more question before we hit 2:30. How long is a typical customer beta testing cycle?
Yeah, another good question. So it is variable, and I don't want to give that easy answer. It is variable. It depends on what features you're releasing. So say we decided to change our whole front end and we want to completely redesign it. We're probably going to do a beta testing for a month or two because we want to get really accurate data. We want to get all the bugs out. But what we typically see is that we're releasing one feature at a time, or one update. So we see 2 to 3 weeks that it's in a few select customers' hands. And then we move on from there. So typically 2 to 3 weeks, but it does vary depending on the size of your updates and features.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Again, I just want to, looks like we're just about to hit 2:30. Thank you all again for joining. We're going to please stay tuned on the DrayNow LinkedIn and Twitter for any updates. And we'll be sharing this recording out as well. So again, thank you, Joe, and thank you to all of our attendees. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.